Welcome to lecture 8. In this lecture 8, we will try to understand customer's voice. So, for any product to develop, there has to be a customer, and customer first, there are two ways of doing it. New products, when it enter into the market, so they assume this customer is like this and they make products. For example, company like Sony and all, they always have a foreseeing thought, and then they say this is what customer might need, and then they start solving and developing products. And other way around is, you try to understand there is a need for a customer, so I will develop a product. So, how will you understand his need? So, as I told you earlier, there is always a teamwork which is done. So, there will be a product development team. So, this team will go to the site, identify the customers, ask them what is their needs, and then convert that needs into an engineering spec, and then start developing products for it. So, customer understanding, customer's requirement understanding is a very big challenge. So, certain things he will try to say, certain things he will not even try to say. He might expect, why don't the product give me this also, he will expect. So, you are supposed to find out what this customer wants. And second thing is, you should also understand, when you try to make customized product for one particular segment or sector of customers, you will have to do a cost benefit analysis and then start developing products. So, the content here is voice of the customer. Next, we will discuss about a tool which is called as QFD, which is quality function deployment, and we will finally see how does product design deployment happen. So, voice of a customer is, any company to sustain in the market, he has to develop successful products. We have already seen what are the different characteristics of successful product. So, a successful product, and any successful product which is developed must have the first step in their entire cycle is understand customer needs. So, the customer needs and tastes have to be understood. Okay. Then a standout amongst the most critical part of the product in the development cycle at this point is to comprehend and gain from the customers. So, there are customers who will try to tell out openly, some customers might not tell it openly what do they need. So, if you try to go one step and try to ask a question for yourself, why does a customer need a product? So, here are some of the things which are generally common reasons for the customer to purchase a new product. So, the first one will be, he would like to see the product is performing well. So, when he wants to purchase, he will see whether the product is performing well. Have highlights that they look forward. Say for example, he might look for 10 features, out of which he is more focused towards 4 features. So, he will always look for those highlights. Are solid, tough and sheltered. It should be simple to use, it should be agreeable to utilize, it should be tastefully satisfying, and it should be well known to all of them. Suppose, let us assume I buy Walkman, and in that Walkman there is a cell which is there. The power comes from a power bank, and this power bank is operated by a DC cell, and if this DC cell is not a standard, so then the problem comes is, I have to every time find out where is it available and also know how to tweak it and then set it in that fixed location. So, I should have lot of people who know about this product, so that they can help me if improving my efficiency of usage and also to find maintenance of it. The voice of a customer is classified into 8. There are 8 classifications wherein which the voice of a customer can be categorized. The first one is cost. So, can I bear this cost? So, see, many a times what happens, people try to buy a product. This example what I take is a house. So, they try to buy a house and then in a luxurious place, and then what they do is they go to a bank and then get it a loan and then start paying the EMI. So, The only thing is, if it is EMI and if the EMI amount is not huge, so that will not affect their regular living. If it is huge and there is uncertainty happening in their livelihood, so then this cost cannot be borne by them. So, whatever I do, the first thing comes to the customer mind is, can I bear the cost? And if I can bear the cost, then I will think of a product to buy. Next one is availability. If I try to buy a camera which has a film roll in the past. So, what happens is, the film roll, many a times they had 35 millimeter, 17 millimeter and all those different categories. And the cameras, once the size became smaller and smaller, they started demanding a smaller size film roll, which was not even available in many countries. So, availability is the other thing which I will always look for. Is this product available in other places, or if at all something goes wrong, can I get a spares out of it? So, that is availability. Third thing is packaging. Today, when I buy a cell phone, people, more than all its use, people try to put their prestige on a cell phone. So, by looking at the cell phone, people try to evaluate your technological capability and your technological capability, in the sense how techno savage are you, and second thing, what is your status. That those things are dictated by looking at the product, right, in cell phone. So, in the same way, when you try to buy a product, the packaging also plays a very important role. How beautifully it is packed. So, packaging is one thing which is very important as far as the customer's voice is concerned. So, next one is performance. I buy a watch or I buy a product, I just forget it. I do not even worry about, should I replace the battery, should I look for this, should I look for the other options. No, the performance is beautiful. So, then I always go for it. And recently, if you look at it, 10 years before, if you go along the road, a national highway, you see lot of vehicles stopped here and there for tire flattening, something would have been overheating of the radiator. So, now what has happened, the technology has improved. So, we use coolant in the radiator, the tires have become now tubeless tires, and there are also tires wherein which there are glues which are just smeared on top of the on the inner side of the tire. So, as and when it is getting exposed to air, it solidifies and then it closes the puncture. Okay. So, performance is the other thing which the customer are always nowadays looking at it. So, the voice of the customer, in this 8 classifications, the 4th classification is the performance. Next one is usability. So, usability is, do I know how to utilize it? So, that is very important. See, went abroad, I bought a BP measuring equipment for my father. So, I bought it, and then it was so easy to work for me. So, I just put it, I demonstrated it, it was just putting around his hand, and then just switch on a button, it gets loaded, air gets loaded, and then it quickly tries to say what is your BP level. And in fact, the companies have applied a lot of visual communication there. So, if you have a value which is in normal range, you will see a smiling face running around the screen, a small screen running around the small screen. And if you are on an borderline case, the face will be slightly reddish in color, and then it will just look at what are the things to be done, or in certain cases it used to say what all exercises to be done, how to maintain or how to bring down your BP, and if it is on the higher side, it has to be done. It was so user friendly for me, but for my father it was never a user friendly thing. He was never happy for using it. He went 3 kilometers far off and went to a doctor and measured the BP. So, usability is other thing. When you try to develop a product, it should be made so friendly, and it has to be appreciated and started using it. Next is affirmation. Will it last for a long time? I buy a product, within 3 days time it ends its show. So, that is not accepted by a customer. So, they will always look for a slightly larger time. Then life cycle costs. Will it be excessively expensive, making it impossible to keep up? Say for example, there are certain old model automobiles for which you do not get spares, but still people used to maintain the old vintage cars as a legacy. So, when they try to maintain, after a period of time they find out that the spares are not available, the engine is not efficient. So, it is not going to give them a pride out of the for the amount of money they spend. The amount of money they spend, the output they get in terms of performance, in terms of feel. So, that is called as life cycle cost. And the last one is social benchmark. What do others consider it? Say suppose I buy a product, will my value in front of the others, will it increase or not? So, these are the 8 classifications wherein which you would have to understand the voice of the customer and go on. So, in watching customers purchase conduct, it has been discovered that their choices about items depend on the properties that can be masterminded into 8 classifications as follows. Okay. Whenever a customer tries to buy, he tries to buy in this 8 classification, he falls in this 8 classification only. He does not fall up out of this, but all these things are basic classification. Here the exact product will be customization of a product which falls in any of these classifications towards meeting the output. The next one is there are 4 levels of customer requirement. So, these 4 level are first level, after finishing first level you go to the second level, third level and the fourth level. The first level is expectors. Expectors are nothing but when I try to buy a product, at least it has to do this amount of work or this application it has to fulfill. So, that is called as expector. The next one is called as spoken. So, in spoken what happens? These are certain things, basically my product has to do this, but on top of it, it could do this, it is fine. So, those things are called as spoken. So, it has to fulfill the first level and then it has to try to fulfill the second level. So, these are particular entities customers say they need in an item. For example, I would like to buy a car which is green in color. First is a car. A car is used for transportation. Now, I spell it, the car has to have a color. I say there has to be a chair which is light. Spoken is, but the expector is at least there has to be a chair, somebody has to sit in it and then start enjoying whatever it is. So, the spoken one is the next thing wherein which I add an adjective, something like an adjective to the previous one. The next one is unspoken. Unspoken is when you try to buy a shirt, it is unspoken that you will have 2 more extra buttons. So, certain things are basic expectation that this nobody will spell it out, but the customer expects that the product will have. So, that is unspoken. First one is expected, this has to have this. Next I will say if it has this, it is okay. The third thing is okay, I do not say this, but I assume the product will have this. So, that is unspoken. Look at it, it is very challenging. You see, understanding the customer's voice is not so easy a job. It has so many things which is spoken, unspoken and then you will try to do it. Okay. So, these are attributes that customer do not discuss. However, they are vital and cannot be overlooked. Okay. Unspoken or an overlooked reaction that for most parts can be categorized on one of the 3. Did not make sure to let you know, would not like to let you know, did not realize what it was. So, in these 3 categories only all these unspoken will be there. First level fulfillment, second level fulfillment, third level is unspoken and then you go to the fourth level. Fourth level is exciters. These are sudden attributes of an item that make it one of a kind and recognize it from the opposition. An exciter is additionally alluded to as a delighter in light of the fact that its characteristic item properties that are lovely shocks to the customer. So, finally, it is if you try to open a gift, okay, it is a gift box. When you try to open a gift box, if there is a springing doll coming out of the box, so that is excitement. You wanted a gift, the gift was whatever it is and then it was light in weight, it was neatly packed, but the final enlightenment was exciter is that it could jump out and come, or it could squeeze out and come, it has a music into it, something like that. These are called exciters. If you go back to the BP device, wherein which all that BP device has to do is show a number. Second thing is it has to have it can be also showing some faces. Unspoken is what is the use if it says that okay he is happy, then okay if he is not happy or is in the borderline case, these are the exercises to be done. And on top of it, if it could sing a song which every time you check BP, and if your level are low or normal, then if it immediately says good job done, so then it makes more excitement. So, this will try to help in selling the product more. If you look at Kano model, there are several models, out of which Kano model is very common or it is very well appreciated. You see here feature executed badly, feature executed well. This is expected, basic level. This is exciter, which is a surprise which is given. A customer will be more satisfied if it is this way, and customer is expected is dissatisfied if it is this way, right. And in this window you see a straight linear line which is going, this is what is wanted. So, a wanted will always be to a large extent half more than the expected and half towards or less than half exciter. This is what is basically wanted for a product to be successful in the market. So, how are the voices recorded, the customer's voice? So, the voice of a customer, so recording the voice of the customer is very important. So, this is the first stage of understanding the requirements. So, there are several strategies. So, all these strategies basically depend upon how much data to be collected, how much money to be spent, and how do you process those informations. So, strategies is utilized realizes upon the sum and sort of data required, its accessibility and the time, and the cost which is involved in collection of these data. You try to strategize which strategy to be used. One, you can go ahead recording the information. Two, you can look at the data. The sources fall in two broad categories. The first category is existing information which you can get. So, and the other one is the new information. Existing information can be got as what is the company sale, what are all the compliance which has come, what is the government policy, how is the company designers or engineers and managers, how do they feel, what are all the benchmarked products which are available such to very similar to this product. So, all these things are existing information which you will try to collect, and the new information can be obtained is by survey, interview, focus group, observation, field count, contact, and direct visit to these users. So, these are all informations which are new. So, certain informations are available in the market. For example, people say that by looking at the data which is available and what is published data in newspapers, we always say okay, energy is a big domain where a lot of investment is going to happen. So, this information, how did it come? This came from the newspapers. Now, what you do is you have decided that you would like to invest in energy. Now, you would like to know which energy to start with, and then who are going to be your customers. Then you decide okay, solar is going to be the energy. Now, you will come back and see okay, so solar, what are all the products which are available in the market. So, all these things are existing information, and what are their performance over the last 1 year or 10 years, how is the growth rate going, and what is the cost of it, are they able to make profit. So, all these things are bookish information available. Now, keeping all this information, now you will decide I will work in energy, solar energy, and now I will try to make a domestic product for this community of people who live in rural India. So, now this is what is a problem statement you have closely identified. Now, what you will do? You will go from place to place in rural India and start looking forward in it. See, when the Nokia, when I was just reading an article, it was saying that Nokia, when they wanted to come to India and see what is the new thing which they would like to add to their cell phone, which gets mass customized to Indian community or Indian citizens, because they understood if they can sell product in India in an economical manner, and if people realize there is a need or a value by getting this product, they will have a huge business. So, that is why the Nokia phone 110 came into the market, and they were able to do, they flooded into the market. But when they came into the market, they were trying to find out what can be the problems associated, or how should I customize my product. So what they did was they tried to realize that in India at that point of time when Nokia came, they found out power was a major challenge. 2, they realized that Indian food conditions are different from that of the Western, and Indians had always oil traces in their hand. So they quickly came out with 2 things. They said, why don't I have an oil coating or oil resistant coating, and second thing, why don't I integrate a torch into my mobile phone. So these 2 ideas came in India, and once it was successful in India, now it has become almost like a mandate. Every phone you buy, cell phone, even let it be a smartphone or a normal phone, it will have a torchlight. How did they realize this? They went around India and then they found out that there is a need for power, and this power they linked it with safety and security. They were able to, they went down to rural India, understood that, they did several surveys, they did several interviews, they focused at several groups, they made observations. Without power, what all feelings happen, how do people look at it. Then they contacted several sales and other people and found out if there is a torchlight integrated, how will it look like. So all these things they did, and these are new set of informations, they got it from the voice of customer. So this, they just went to the customer and said if it will be integrated. The company has to think and come and find out, okay, small torchlight can be integrated and will it be useful. And then they also realized that when they said torchlight, the community also said the torchlights whatever is available then was consuming huge power. So the bulb was inefficient, the batteries were inefficient, and the biggest challenge is the batteries were expensive at that point of time. So they were not able to get a free flow of batteries in rural village. So their demand was, why don't we come up with a light or come up with something where in which it consumes less energy and they don't have to worry about the maintenance. So then came the LED getting integrated into the torchlight. So these all came by getting new information from the voice of the customer. So how do you analyze the voice of a customer? So here what do we do is, what we generally do is when we go to a class also we make a class notes. So then in this class notes we have lot of data wherein which many of these data are sometimes not complete, or we would have written in a very abstract manner. So what we have to do is in the voice of the customer also when you record it, we try to note down certain points and then we try to bridge those points, or we put them in sequence so that we can try to understand, or if it is an abstract we try to give some polishing and then try to make a clear objective statement. So here in this in the wake of having recorded the voice of the customer, the product development group takes their reaction at time called verbatism and thinks of them on a single card. So what's a singular card? So what they do is they write down all those things and then they start pasting all the points in a board or in a place. So then what they do is they do something called as cluster analysis. Then once they paste all the information, then they try to group those informations into several small zones, clusters. So that now the data whatever was there got polished and then it got into a clear abstract objectives so that it can be stuck there and they can start working on it. So these reactions are scrubbed, which is a procedure of altering the verbatism, dispensing with those verbatism from different interviews then mean a similar thing. For example, I interviewed, you will interview. It is not a single man interview. By the way, voice of the customer is not a single customer. You will try to interview 100 people. You will try to meet 100 people and you will go as a group, not as an individual, or you go as an individual, go meet a group, collect all the data. So there is always going to be a variance in the data. So now you have to normalize the data. So this is what we are trying to say, and compose more cards for those verbatism that express more than one thought. So what we do is we try to clean the data, cluster the data, rephrase the data such that you exactly picture out or catch what the customer wants in a short word. Why is it written in a short word, not the full conversation? Because when you have more amount of data, your thinking also gets choked. So what we do is we try to collect all the data, polish the data, bring all the thoughts and make it into precise words and then keep it. So, and then keep it in the sense we write a card. So, these cards are then arranged into bunches that appear to be changed depiction of an all the more extensive communication qualities be there, and then we try to do it. So, for example, if you take a board, first we stick all the points are written in cards. Then what do? We put A, B, C and we try to paste all this A, B, C. These are data. These data are now clustered into groups, and then when you cluster into groups, now what you do is you try to polish all those things once again, and finally you come out with the objective statement. Okay. So, this is what is done. So, the voice of the customer, these verbatism have to be ranked. So, whatever you did. So, if you go back to this, so now you have put 3 here, 2 here, 1 here. Now, what do? In this 3 you will try to put weightages 1, 2 and 3, and then re-alter the weightages, and A, B, C you did 3 clusters. In this also you will try to give weightages, and now you will say which one is important, which is second important, which is third important. In this important criteria, all the objectives whatever was there, you will again try to reiterate them, and now you will try to go for a clear objective statement. So, that is what is given here. So, one is passive way, there are several ways of doing it, another one is active way. So, here is one way we are trying to discuss. Passive way is count the number of times the equivalent attribute is mentioned by the interviewers. For example, 50 people in the interview say red car, red car, red car, so that is counted. So, then they come and say red car is impressive. Those that are mentioned the most often are assumed to be the most important. For example, if you ask a small child, it will say chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. So, now the passive way of doing it is okay. So, chocolate is very important. So, we just put chocolates. The active is take those attributes that have been ranked the most important in the manner just described. Ask another group of interviews. So, what we do is here we put a filter. So, what we have done here, we have taken a group of a group of children, and then we have asked them what is your most liking product. They all say chocolates. So, now we have taken the idea from them, put them all in a cluster, and then take the same thing and go to another set of people and ask them, do you still feel these are important, or is your view also the same? So, take those attributes that have been ranked the most important in the manner just described. Ask another group of interviewers to rank their importance. Now, you re-rank it, and now you take whatever it is. The ranking can be done 0 to 1, as I said last time itself, it can be done 1 to 10, it can be done up to 1 to 100. So, when you give more numbers, you can see the difference is very prominent. So, the next one is what we are going to discuss is quality function deployment, and here if you see it is all hearsay, interview, all those things. So, many a times when you start writing the data, you might have your own bias. For example, I like blue color. Okay. So, moment I ask somebody, do you like, what is the color of your choice? And the next thing which immediately I say, is it blue? I ask. So, why? Because my algorithm, my neural network is stuck to blue. So, this when I go with the same view to a customer, so immediately suppose he has blue and red, he might say, okay, you asked me blue, I will also say blue. There might see some customers which say, you said blue, I do not like, because you said blue, I will say red. So, these are certain things, the questions whatever you ask and how it tries to take the customer, or how the group of people, how do you channelize, how do you soothe them, how is the ambience around, all these things play a very major role in this listening to voice of customers. So, the next tool is quality function deployment. Quality function deployment is a more formalized strategy for coordinating the communication need of the customer to the attributes and the functions of the item. This is the first one is little random, and the data which comes out is not so easy for the next set of people to start working on it. By the way, the customer voice, what I am trying to say, it can be internal, it can be external. Internal means in a company when you are working, the previous desk fellow, if you are working in series or in parallel, the previous desk fellow can be a customer for you, or the next fellow can be a customer for you. So, the customer is the next person who is going to use the product. Okay, that is what it is. So, please do not think that it is always moving towards the customer who is on the who is there in a separate group of people. But so here the quality function deployment. So, quality function deployment is a more structured, strategically made such that the customer voice can be understood, it can be easily converted into engineering spec. So, here it is an intensive technique that makes a difference to characterize the item as far as the customer's prerequisition is. QFD records a relative significance to the customer of the customer's requirement. So, converting the perceived needs of the customer to yield a competitive advantage is a factor, is a most important thing, or is the advantage of QFD. QFD utilizes design attributes to portray each of the items useful necessities. The building quality are connected to the customer's prerequisite. The item's engineering characteristics are additionally benchmarked to distinguish those qualities that must be coordinated or surpassed. So, it is stressed that the engineering characteristics are the characteristics of the functional requirement and not the customer requirement. So, what is that? So, you have converted customer requirement into functional requirement, and this functional requirement you have converted into engineering requirement. So that what happens, the customer's voice is understood and we start working on it. So, here we follow QFD is otherwise also called as house of quality. A house of quality is nothing but a multi-dimensional technique that demonstrates the relationship of customer necessities to the designing qualities of the item. So, it epitomizes the different parts of the customer's necessity for the item and their sentiments of the contender's item. Contender is contemporaries. It translates and provides judgment of the relationship of every engineering characteristics to the customer requirement. So, this is what is house of quality. So, what customer wants is written as here customer requirements. Okay. And what I said easily, that I said prior, customer requirement to functional requirement to engineering requirements. So, what is required is written here, how is it required is written here, and then between these two guys you will try to have a relationship matrix done here. So, in this relationship matrix you will try to give values. It can be 0, 3, 9, whatever it is. So, then what you do is, it is not only this, you have understood customer, you have understood how are you going to make it, what is the relationship. You are also supposed to see your customer already in the market. So, that is looking for competitive customers, whatever there are there in this domain of product to be developed. Okay. So, here the customer, whatever is the customer says 10 requirements. So, what I do is I rank all those 10 and then I put them, so that it becomes later easy. So, why? Because weightage into whatever is the value, I sum it up and I can take the I can do some math in it, so that I can use it later. Only for that we have put this customer importance. So, customer requirement he says I want a solar energy is some product. So, you have decided whatever it is and then you put down the product characteristics whatever you want. Now, you try to put them in the ranking. What is the technology you get, you put it here. Who are all your competitors? A, B, C are the competitors. How are the competitors performing with respect to individual customer requirement? So, that is what is done here. So, then what you do is you fix up a target value. So, here customer would have said I need a light pen. So, now you try to say a 50 gram pen. So, this is the target value whatever it is, and then so then what you do is you would try to see the technical competitive assessment, then you would try to give an absolute score, then you give a relative score, and finally what you get is what is the target value. So, that from here you start your engineering specification. Objective, express the goal of the item, list of characteristics, get a rundown of the qualities of the item as characterized by the customer. Whenever possible, the customer requirements ought to be gathered at their largest. So, the customer requirements are additionally used to assess the application idea fulfilling. Importance of rating, whatever I have said, the qualities required to achieve the product characteristics. These are built-in quality communications and are quantified as far as possible. Although it is not the standard to do so as such, it is proposed that the designing attributes to be assembled by their functional requirement. Then you have a correlation matrix. The correlation matrix demonstrates the level of communication among the item building qualities. Then target values, what is to be achieved, then the relationship matrix. So, I have explained individually all these boxes for your understanding. So, customer competitive assessment, it is the outline of the main few customer items qualities in correlation with the items getting created. Technical competitive assessment is technical competitive assessment thinks about the competitors particular for each of the items design qualities for those of the proposed specification. Absolute importance and relative importance. Absolute importance is the aggregate of the product of the numerical value of each element in the column of the relationship matrix. A relative importance is an assurance of the level of the add up to numerical scores from each engineering characteristics. So, if you look at it, so blue ones are the customer requirements with weightage factors. Where are the weightage factors? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you gave, and these red ones are product rating from a competitive. So, here is a competitor's rating. So, how is these things rated with this? Then engineering characteristics, these are the engineering characteristics whatever it is done. Then between these things a relationship matrix is given here. So, now I multiply this weightage with this relationship and then I write the sum of individual one. So, this is the calculated weights which are given here. This is in a house of quality. So, product design specification. So, amid the way towards finishing the house of quality, the IDPs group, so this is nothing but product development group, ought to likewise be creating data that will shape the product design specification as PDS. So, in this the product definition should state the following: the product title, what purpose or function the product is supposed to perform, against what type of product it will be competing, who makes them, what market it will serve, why there is a need, the anticipated demand and target price, product identity, relationship to the company's current product line. So, these are the product definitions that will be stated in the product design specification. So, in product design specification, so generally purpose of the product, target cost to customers, need of the product, benefit to users, time for the first product to come, customers, size, weight, quantity, competition, service span, lifespan, okay, service life, market evaluation, trade. The performance will be in terms of features and function and features. Constraints will be shipping mode, disposal, manufacturing, in-house, in-country, out of country. Constraints are political, social, legal, maintenance and service, packaging, self-life, patents, environment, testing, safety, material, ergonomics and standards, interface, aesthetics, end user, supplier, energy consumption, product operation and user training. These are all the constraints which are there in a product design specification. So, now it is clear, you will have all those details in the product design specification. Task for the student: try to develop a QFD for a product which is known to you. The product must be able to move certain wait. So, the product should be this. For this product, you try to develop a QFD. So, the QFD is going to be, this is the matrix which we are going to talk about. This we talked about, what is a customer requirement, customer importance, relationship matrix, customer competitor assessment, target values. So, and then you talk about technical competent assessment. Okay, with respect to this absolute score and relative score, you will try to develop a QFD and then try to understand and appreciate the QFD model. So, with this we come to an end to lecture 8. Thank you very much.